Behemoths in Call of Dragon are one of the most important aspects of the game and one of the most unique and also one of the most underused mechanics in the open field especially. So in this video we're going to be breaking down what the best behemoths are, the best ways to use them, and the best way to ensure you gain as much as advantage as possible in the open field, especially when you're fighting a big war. What is up guys, MEOWER here back with a brand new Call of Dragons video. So, before we get this video started, I want to just point out a few things about behemoths. Everyone knows how to take behemoths in the open field map when they are occupying the layers, but not everyone knows how to use them properly in the open field, especially during wars, skirmishes, etc, etc, etc. So this video's goal will be to help you out and sort of like I'm gonna have a tier list at the end of this video where I show which behemoth is like the best of the best and why that is. I always like to give reasoning for every single thing I explain just to help you like understand the idea of it. And of course, I would like to hear your opinion whether you agree or disagree. This video, of course, is requested by Sakya. Saika. I don't know how to pronounce your name. I'm sorry if I butchered your name. The message will be on the screen right now, though. Of course, if you want to request any videos or you have any interesting topics you'd like me to dive into, feel free to join my Discord. The link is in the description. I always welcome any video requests, especially when I am in content slowing down sort of thing. So of course, everyone's requests are always welcome, and I try to my best in order to fulfill those requests. So, with that being said, let's dive into the behemoth, what they are, how to use them, what their requirements are to summon them, and what the best decks are in order to benefit them the most. So behemoths in general, in order to summon them, you need to have the new Beastmaster tag. And my alliance has agreed to give me this in order to make this video for you guys, because I'm not really an officer. So this is just for the video. Don't expect me to see an officer position anymore, okay guys? So the Beastmaster tag is one of the newer titles in the Alliance system. It was introduced in an earlier patch. It is the only way for you to summon Behemoth now in the open field. The way you can summon Behemoth is from the Behemoth icon that you can just go through it in the Alliance UI, and then you can just select whatever behemoth you want to summon, and then select the area that you want to summon in. Usually, the only way that you can summon a behemoth, or the only spots that you can summon a behemoth, are on flags. That's the only possible areas that you can summon behemoths in, whether if it's your flag or a flag that you're connected to and you're making a push on. Other than that, it's not going to work and you will not be able to summon a behemoth at all because each and every behemoth has a tether range that you can summon. So, for example, I'm going to be testing out summoning the Thunder Rock here on this flag here in this area. So once I summon it, this is like the mini icon. I choose a target here, and then the behemoth gets summoned in this area, giving me full access to control it as if it was one of my marches. As you can see, it's a little bit clunky, or maybe I'm just lagging in general. I'm not sure, but it is a little bit clunky. You can just select it. You can keep running around with it. It cannot attack Darklings. It cannot attack cities. It can only attack either passes. So you can summon Behemoth on passes when you're hitting a pass, or it can attack marches on the open field. That is the only two places where you can where you can use a Behemoth to attack anyone or anything. So again, passes and armies in general. That's it. And there is a little tether range on it, so it cannot really go past the circle. So there is like the summoning area circle. Every behemoth has the same size of the circle, and every behemoth can maneuver around in this circle, except for the magma demon. The magma demon cannot really move. All it does is just stand in its place, whatever you select. However, a big shout out to SteelHard for giving me this information. It has a range where it can attack everyone in this circle, even though it doesn't really move, making it like a defensive turret. So what we're gonna do here is that we're gonna be diving in each and every skill on each of every behemoth, and then we're gonna be ranking them in general on how good they are in the open field. So to start off, we're going to be starting with everyone's furry best friend, the giant bear, and this is usually the first behemoth you unlock in general, and this is one of the most widely used behemoth because most of the fights tend to happen in the early game. At later stages of the game, when more behemoths are unlocked, things kind of start settling down and less fights start to happen. So that is why some behemoths don't really see that much action compared to others. However, we're still going to be ranking them to their fullest potential, even though they might not see as much action. But if they would see action, that is how they're going to be ranked. So each and every behemoth has three skills in general. They're a bit different than the skills they have when you purify them. So ignore everything that you know about purifying them when dealing with behemoths in the open field. They're like an extra march that has this amount of base stats. These stats can be improved by both doing the elite rate, which kind of increases the stats of everything it does, and it upgrades the skills of said behemoth, and through alliance technology. So there is in the technology part, there is the behemoth section. All of these only apply to the behemoths alone. You need to research them all and just research wild summon in general first in order to be able to summon the behemoth. So even if you have every single behemoth and you don't have a wild summon research, you will not be able to summon a behemoth in the open field, even if you have the Beastmaster title. Okay, so let's just dive into the skills in each and every behemoth so we don't really take that long in the video. So the giant bear is like one of the most popular ones, but it's also not one of the best. While yes, it does have a very clean AI, it has clean animations, and it's very simple to use. It is still not the best, mainly because of the low amount of skill damage factor it has, and the really long charge up time for its second skill, and it doesn't really provide any aura. It's all self buffs. So the giant bear here has three skills. All of them only affects itself. It doesn't really affect anyone else or your marches around it. Which takes us to the giant, the regular giant, not the necrogiant. The regular giant, in my opinion, is one of the best behemoths in the game, especially for the open field, or mainly just for the open field, because of this skill. After 2 minutes of being summoned, the giant casts its mountain aura, increasing damage dealt by itself and surrounding friendly legions for 90 seconds by 20%. 20% all damage dealt bonus for everyone around it is pretty significant, especially when making a push, making a giant one of the best pushing behemoths in the game in period, because some behemoths work better when you're pushing a flag versus defending a flag. The giant bear, for example, is better for defending because it doesn't really provide that many auras and can just be a disruptor with its second skill, but it doesn't really have any other benefits than that. While the giant is one of the best balling up and pushing with a ball behemoths, mainly because of its mountain aura, and its every single part of its skills is all about AoE. So just a lot of AoE, and it does some really nice damage. Plus, its aura is pretty insanely strong, especially after the elite raid. It goes from 5% to 20%, and it goes from 30 seconds to 90 seconds, which is pretty insane. Which brings us to our third behemoth on the list, which was the Thunder Rock. In my opinion, one of the worst behemoths for the open field. Summon it last, it's bad, it's clunky, it does really low damage, it's super easy to avoid. This skill, I think it's bugged or something, it doesn't really do much at all. The third skill, while it seems pretty nice, it's still not enough. Like the Thunder Rock in general, the problem with it, in my opinion, and what I've seen it do, is that it's really clunky. Like its skills sometimes don't land. It just bugs out. It doesn't really do what it's supposed to do, even when you're controlling it properly. Like it's just one of the worst behemoths in general. I would only summon it if you have no other option, even though it provides a really nice 30% Legion march speed. Compared to other behemoths, it's pretty bad, because as we progress in the list, we'll see how broken some behemoths can get. Which brings us to the fourth behemoth, the Hydra. The Hydra, one of the best flat out, has some really nice AoE damage, has some really nice animations, it's pretty quick, it does considerable amount of damage, and its last skill is one of the strongest ones in the game in general because it has a defense shredding that stacks every 3 seconds, making it pretty easy to reach the 40% defense break threshold pretty quickly over time. It's pretty easy to use, it's fairly simple, it's one of the better pushing behemoths rather than defending, while maybe it's good for defending as well because defense break in general is just super good stat to have on anyone, really everyone, and I do mean every single march benefits from hitting stuff that has a defense break. So in general, one of the better behemoths in the game, of course. And then the next like upgraded tier of behemoths would be the direbear. So Direbear would be considered an upgraded tier mainly because of the nature of its skills. So again, kind of like the regular giant bear, it has a really low regular normal attack factor, but its second skill and its third skill are where its value comes from. The first one is that it has a really big AoE damage that has multiple layers of damage, so can really do significant amount of damage if people are not paying attention, especially in big fights. It's really hard to see its animation, so it's kind of difficult to dodge it, and it does a lot of damage over time. While its third skill is a rage engine, pretty much. And well, rage is one of the best stats to get in general. Because gaining extra rage means you get extra casting of your skills, making it so you just rage cycle better than your opponents, meaning you're gonna deal extra damage, apply more debuffs, apply more buffs for yourself, etc. etc. You get the point. So one of the better behemoths for sure. I wouldn't call it top tier, but it's definitely in like the middle of the pack. It's not the worst, it's not the best. Well, speaking of the best, one of the best behemoths in the game, especially when you're making a big push, is the necrogiant. The reason for that is because of its third skill. But before we get to that, let's read its skills. Its regular skills is that you just do some AoE. Its second skill, it launches sort of like a spirit bomb that does ticks every single time. It does the damage per second, so it's 3,200 damage factor per second as long as you're being touched. That kind of spikes up to insane amount of numbers when you factor in this skill. So the necrogiant, after it's being summoned, it increases every single type of damage it deals by 30% every 30 seconds. And usually behemoths last on the battlefield for around 9.5 minutes, 10 minutes, something roughly like that. So for 300 seconds, that is 5 minutes plus another 5 minutes, and 120, that's like 12 and a half minutes. And when you factor in this, so this stacks infinitely. So over time, especially at like the 5 minute threshold, you're already dealing 300% extra damage. So this goes from 3,200 to 32,000 per second tick. It's just insanely strong. And if people are not paying attention to it and they think it doesn't really deal that much damage like other behemoths and they can just ignore it, they're in for a really painful lesson. Now, behemoths in general are not really invulnerable. They're rather easy to kill if they are focused down because they can sometimes get a little clunky. Their base stats are pretty decent, but when they're focused on by like 20, 30, 40, 50 marches, they tend to melt like butter pretty quickly. So that is why you should never summon a behemoth alone. You should always support it and escort it with your marches. The seventh behemoth that you're going to get access to is the Flame Dragon, which is pretty much the best behemoth in the game, mainly for this skill. Like this skill, I don't know how insane or how this is even considered balanced, but having a skill like this in the open field pretty much guarantees that you're going to be invulnerable for the duration that the flame dragon is on the field. But before we read it, let's just check its regular skills. Its regular skills are pretty disruptive. Like this this arc kind of does a lot of damage. This has like a very nice AoE, dealing damage. It's got 15,000 damage factor, one of the highest in the game. And of course, this skill. Now, this skill, I cannot emphasize how broken it is. It grants your legions immunity to control effects for 80 seconds. If you don't know what control effects are, pretty much snares, roots, stuns, anything that's considered the debuff is considered a control effect. It doesn't really block you from defense breaks or stuff like attack reductions and such, but you're pretty much not going to be able to stop moving whatsoever as long as this aura is cast around you. Plus, you get a 30% skill damage boost for 80 seconds as well. It's pretty insane and it's pretty strong, especially as soon as it's summoned. You should make a push immediately. This is one of the more pushing behemoths because it kind of loses value over time in comparison to the necrogiant. So the flame dragon, as soon as it's summoned, it's extremely broken. So try to make use of that time when you are completely busted and you can't really be CC'd and you have a humongous hero skill damage steroid around you. Finally, the Magma Demon. Now, the Magma Demon, like I said, is one of the more complicated behemoths for you to use, mainly because you have four options, but you can only summon one of them. The best two, in my opinion, is the Manipulator and the Reaper. The reason for that is because they deal insane amount of damage, and in general, the Magma Demon is the defensive behemoth. It's like a turret that you summon next to a flag to guarantee that flag does not go down and to help you get yourself in order, kind of get position and such. So in general, it does insane amount of damage. It's a walking turret, so you can't really move it. It just parks next to your flag, so you can't really move it either. Again, so it is like perfect for defending key points such as a pass or a flag or a fortress or whatever you want to defend, and it will help you buy a lot of time for you or your members to regroup and for you guys to like get into position in order to defend that spot properly. So again, the best two are the manipulator because of the amount of damage it does, and it's all about AoE. It does so much range damage. It does so much AoE. Its attack speed in general is pretty high. Like it's super broken, especially the second skill. It casts on it kind of makes like a big pool that people, if they are walking on, it does 12,000 damage factor per second, which is insanely broken. Like you don't realize how much damage that is, especially in an open field when not many people pay attention on what's going on or some animations get hidden. And finally, of course, it does self-destruct, where if anyone or everyone is around it, they take up to 30,000 skill damage factor. Again, pretty insane. It's pretty much almost a one-shot on most marches. Like it's pretty crazy strong. And of course, the Reaper has that skill where it one-shots anyone that it does this charge up on. Like whoever is isolated on that is pretty much guaranteed to get one shot. And of course, it does its AoE and its regular damage. The Devastator is one of the worst ones in my opinion. Like I don't like it that much. It doesn't really do that much damage. Like it has a mix of CC and damage, but it doesn't really like have a certain niche. Like the Manipulator is all about AoE damage and taking Reaper one shots, but the Devastator is a bit like CC in a bit. But when you're defending a flag, you need as much damage in order to clear the marches around it. So it's kind of counterproductive, while the Devour is just absolutely worthless. Don't summon this. You're trolling if you summon it. The heal is insignificant. 800 healing factor is nothing. Tear of Arbon is a better healing alternative if you need someone to heal you. Like an artifact does more healing than a behemoth, so keep that in mind. If this gets buffed to like 3,000 and 8,000 healing factor, then maybe it will be good. But till then, absolutely worthless. Don't summon this behemoth. You're trolling and you just want to lose a flag if you summon this. But that is pretty much everything for the behemoths. For now, let's go to the tier list. So we're now in front of the tier list, and as we discussed in the video, we kind of ranked them based on their uses, their flexibility, and such. So Thunder Rock, like we mentioned, is one of the worst behemoths in general because of how clunky, how weak it generally is, and how unimpactful the skills are. The Direbear and the Magma Demon both fit some really niche positions, not making them necessarily bad, but they're not really the best in general. And the giant bear is much better than the dire bear because the giant bear is just has a much better AI and it's just more consistent in its damage. As we move up to the A tier, the Hydra, of course, it's with its defense shred, makes it extremely strong and potent when it does damage and deals with enemies. And of course, we got our top big three: the giant, the flaming dragon, the necrogiant, and the giant, regular giant. But of course they're not really based on like just because something is better in a tier does not make it better. But I think the necro giant would is probably the best behemoth in general in the game to summon because of how much damage it does, because of its ramp up and such, like we mentioned in the video previously, making it one of the best behemoths in general to have summoned. But that is it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope you've learned a thing or two from it. Thank you so much for watching. If you like the content like this, please be sure to drop a like. Don't forget to subscribe and join the Discord if you also want to request anything. I welcome all requests if they're feasible. I'll try my best to make them. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day and I will see you in the next video. Meow meow.